Hi, I just thought I'd share with you something that I wrote for my mother a few years ago called Lessons My Mother Taught Me. I'm not too sure if she found it very amusing or not, but I meant it in the kindest of ways. As I read this to you, I do need to warn you that my sense of humor can maybe be a little bit warped. At a very young age, I tended to look at things philosophically and would analyze a very common situation into something maybe bigger than it was. And that's carried over into how I look at life today. So these are all everyday things. I'm sure you were told some of them as a child as well, and maybe have used them yourself. But did you know the meaning behind them all? Anyway, I'd like to share it with you. I hope you take some enjoyment from this, maybe smile, maybe think, and we'll see how it goes. So, lesson number 1. Always go pee before getting in the car with your dad. Now, I don't know about you, but my father, when he went on a road trip, he didn't stop for anyone. He might stop and get gas along the way, and if you were lucky, it had a bathroom there and you could run in and use it. Otherwise, no go. So, he stopped for no one. So, Mom always told me to make sure you went to the washroom before you got in the car, because there was no stopping. Well, this taught me to think ahead and be prepared. No sense heading off all pissy. Leave that crap at home and start out fresh. Now, number 2. This is continuation of lesson number 1. Now, I had to be taught how to go to the bathroom outside. Being a girl, any of you women out there know it is not as easy as for a man. So when peeing outside, you have to be very careful. Make sure that you have your feet well apart. You want to pee downhill because you don't want to get your shoes wet. So this taught me that sometimes when you least expect it, crap happens. But if you are watching for the signs and omens, you can keep from stepping in it at least. So number 3, I was always told, don't eat raw dough. You'll get worms. Well, things may not always be what they seem. What seems like a good idea at the time can cause you pain, and quite often afterwards, much discomfort. So be thoughtful of your actions. Number 4, when going out on a date, I was always told, make sure you carry at least enough money for a phone call. So dating myself here, back in the day when we had payphones and you could use a quarter to call anywhere, Mom always said make sure you have at least a quarter so that if you need to, call home, and don't ever be afraid to call. We'll come and get you wherever you are. So that was very important because it taught me to look after myself, to think ahead again, but also it told me that I had someone that I could call who would take me back no matter what. Fortunately, I never had to use that quarter. Well, the day came, number 5, when I asked my mom to explain to me where babies came from. I never saw my mom so frustrated and flustered in my life. I don't even think she looked at me. I can remember standing in the doorway of the kitchen while she was stirring soup or something on the stove, and she never turned around and looked at me once. I was probably about 10 years old when this happened. So she did a good job, though, of making the whole process sound absolutely horrid. I couldn't believe that my parents actually wanted children so much that they would do such a thing. Well, that taught me something. It taught me over time that there are some things that you really have to experience for yourself, because what you're told might not be totally true to you. Number 6, having the very thick hair that I do, I was told always comb your wet hair right after you wash it so you can, or you'll never get the tangles out. I realize that life is like that. No matter how you try and ignore all the knots and tangles that you've gotten yourself into, they will only get worse the longer you leave them. And ultimately, it's up to you to get them out. So it's better to deal with things right away, right at the start, and be done with it. Number 7. Now, at the time, my mom was a smoker, and my grandmother was very much against that for her personal and religious beliefs, and she would come to visit. So my mom would go through quite a procedure. If she wanted to have a cigarette, she wouldn't have it outside because Grandma might see her. So she would go in the bathroom, put the exhaust fan on while blowing cigarette smoke out the window, and then spraying down the room with room freshener in order to sneak a cigarette to fool Grandma into thinking she didn't smoke. Well, I don't know if it actually worked or not, but it did show me that Mom respected Grandma's feelings and beliefs enough to put herself out in her own home. Or maybe I should have been more afraid of Grandma. The next one, number 8. Whatever you do, don't lift that stew pot or the dumplings will fall. A lesson in patience and trust. Boy, how many times in life have I needed that reminder? If I trust that everything is as it should be, simmering away in universal time, well, then when the time is right, I will get to reap the rewards. Number 9, maybe you were like me, and when you come in the door after school, I was greeted with, "Don't slam the door when there's a cake in the oven or you'll make it fall." One seemingly innocent action can cause a chain reaction with shattering results that can never be repaired. Number 10, if time allows, always make your desserts before your husband gets home from work. Okay, just a note here. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and mother and wife. So when I first got married, she was very helpful in giving me tips on how to keep a happy home. And this was one of them. Always make sure the desserts were made before your husband got home from work. Why? Because if they flopped, you fed them to the family dog. And that way, he'll never know. He'll just think you didn't make dessert. There are some things that are best kept between you and the family pet. Enough said. Number 11, never go to bed with your husband with curlers in your hair. The curlers are like nasty thoughts and words that dig deep into you and eventually into your partner. I've also concluded that there are much better ways to get tangled up in bed than with curlers. Say your prayers every night. Give thanks for the many blessings in your life, if it's only just one. This is one of the most valuable lessons that I carry with me today. Always be grateful for the smallest of things in your life. Start and end your day with gratitude. Thank you, Mom, for the lessons that you taught me.